Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation. We are group number 3 and we'll be discussing urban runoff today. Our group members include Leah Charles, Monica Coe, and myself, Torrin Valdez. Let's get started. So our learning objectives today are landscape scale factors, human and environmental impacts, and the legal frameworks for managing urban runoff. But before we get into those, we'll start with a little bit of background. So the definition of urban runoff, according to ScienceDirect.com, is overland flow caused by urbanization and land development, and the altered hydrology and altered infiltration rates caused by anthropogenic developments. So urban runoff is the result of atmospheric deposition, generally in the form of precipitation, falling on drainage surfaces, and in urbanized areas that means impervious surfaces, specifically roadways, sidewalks, buildings, homes, and housing developments and related structures, and including industrial areas. And in these areas, anthropogenic activities, of course, take place, whether that's the use of automobiles, people's just going about their daily lives, construction activities, and industry itself. And even commercial uses as well. Those all result in the buildup of pollutants on these impervious surfaces. So as that precipitation falls on them, it picks those pollutants up and then carries them into the urban drainage system, which may or may not have stormwater control measures in place in the form of best management practices to filter out or reduce the concentration of those pollutants before they make it into the various series of pipes and connections that will eventually outfall into some surface water body, most often. And what makes this difficult sometimes is there are misconnections and lack of knowledge of how these systems are connected. So that makes it a difficult challenge, a difficult problem to tackle. So starting with landscape scale factors, we know that the size of a contributing area can really impact the water quality. This is because not only in terms of discharge, the amount of discharge making it to the air, but that also might include what practices are found within the watershed and their distance and disbursement throughout that watershed. So of course, the closer pollutant sources to the water source, there's a higher likelihood that the pollutant concentration in any surface runoff will be greater, and will make it more easily into that water body. And small landscape scale contributes little to runoff in contrast to larger areas, especially when those areas are covered in impervious surfaces like you would see in cities or really sprawling and well-developed counties. And so of course any pollutants will impact the pH of water. It could lower the concentration of dissolved oxygen, and it could also impact temperature, but we'll get into that shortly. And topography and vegetative cover also highly impact how surface runoff might impact water quality. So the greater the amount of vegetation, the lower the maximum potential erosive force, and that also includes the greater ability to pick up more pollutants that might be caked onto to surfaces if they don't readily dissolve. And so here in this image taken from a paper by G et al., we see that the lower beneficial hydrologic function is related to vegetative cover in many areas. And so as vegetative cover decreases, that maximum potential erosion increases, as shown in this image here. And related to that is the topography. More sloped areas will have gravity will have more influence on the surface runoff, increasing its erosive force. So these two things kind of go hand in hand, those things being topography and vegetative cover. And so the geographical distribution of precipitation events can also really dictate how surface runoff can impact water quality as well. If it's mostly falling in these areas of woodland or meadow areas, you're going to generally see greater infiltration rates than runoff rates. However, if most of it's falling on an urban business district or residential areas, because of their greater percentage of impervious surface in terms of overall area, you're likely going to see greater amounts of runoff overall in terms of a rate, and less infiltration. And the row crop agriculture falls somewhere in between because that vegetation has been removed in most cases, besides in those rows, which of course will impact hydrology as well. So overall, if a drainage area has greater impervious surface, that the greater likelihood that any rain event will contribute these pollutants often associated with urban areas into the receiving waters. And so with urban runoff, there are four main topics of concern that contribute to decreased water quality in the system. That is impervious surfaces, dumping and litter, chemical and oil use, and storm drains, and we'll get into each of those. So in terms of impervious surface, humans create impervious surfaces such as roads, parking lots, sidewalks, etc., which increase runoff issues both in quantity and quality. Impervious surfaces don't allow infiltration, funneling water through storm drains from widespread areas. And asphalt is great at absorbing and storing heat, which once precipitation falls on those impervious surfaces, the heat is transferred to that runoff, and then into the receiving waters, and often impacting the stream temperature or the temperature of the receiving waters. And according to NOAA, sensitive streams can be affected by as little as 5% impervious surface in the drainage area. Greater impacts are expected with over 20% impervious surface. So it really doesn't take a lot, potentially, to impact the water quality of an area, especially when we're discussing temperature. In terms of some pollutants, we have, in this case, motor oil, litter, and road salt. So motor oil and emissions collect on impervious surfaces and are transferred into water bodies via runoff during the next precipitation event. Often that first flush is the most concentrated in terms of pollutant load. Litter is flushed into storm drains, increasing heavy metals and other pollutants. And over 4,000 chemicals are found in cigarette butts and filters alone, leaching into water bodies and harming aquatic life. And then de-icing salt permanently pollutes water bodies potentially, and a teaspoon of salt can pollute 5 gallons worth of water. And according to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, an average of 365,000 tons of salt is applied to the St. Paul, Minneapolis area each year alone, and about 78% of that is transported to groundwater or remains in local lakes, rivers, and wetlands. So that's pretty huge impacts from these urban areas. And these storm drains that connect to the conveyance system, whether to an outfall or first to a stormwater BMP, the storm drains allow water from very large areas of land to be funnels into one nearby water body. This increases the flooding potential and pollution issues as an impervious surface prevents infiltration. So those impervious surfaces really change the hydrology of a watershed by reducing the amount of infiltration. And in terms of environmental impacts, there are four big environmental impacts resulting from urban runoff. Temperature increases due to impervious surface holding onto and exchanging heat. Higher temp waters hold less oxygen, contributing to fish kill and impacts on other aquatic life. Wildlife and plant health decrease as pollution increases, and diversity of sensitive population decreases because of this, and that's something we talked about when we were discussing benthic macroinvertebrates and waterways and how they might be used as an index for water quality. And flooding, and on top of this, flooding causes major erosion and pollutant loading due to impervious surfaces, and so the buildup of pollutants within soil might be reintroduced into that soil if they've been kind of pent up there for some time, and that's a concern in many areas. And soil health is inhibited by salty runoff, creating a coating of salt on sediment beds that prevent oxygen exchange with the microbes. So quite a large list, and those are just the overarching themes, really. You could get into much greater detail here. And in terms of human impacts, we see impacts to public health through bacteria and pathogens in water due to pet waste or other pollutants in runoff. And that includes human waste in some areas, which results in waterborne illnesses, and as well as wastewater treatment plant spills, due to flooding as well. And I believe that's a concern right now in Florida. There's a pretty big incident that's pretty much just a ticking time bomb, so to speak. Other impacts are flooding and damages. So the altering the infiltration due to the impervious surface in urban areas causes huge quantities of water to be funneled into one water body. And increased flooding causes not only increased erosion, but damages and costs to property owners and infrastructure. Increased costs and need for dredging and barge shipping routes is also a concern. The sedimentation due to winter application of traction sand and increased flows because of the modified hydrology causes this erosion and sedimentation in other parts of the watershed and flow of that creek or stream. Increased cost of water treatment plants. If that water body is used as a drinking water source, pollutants due to motor oil and litter can really increase the cost of treating water to make it potable. And this could also cause it to have bad taste, which is just not good service to the customers that rely on those water systems. And this also includes aesthetics of shoreline property, and so impacts might be algae blooms due to nutrient pollutant runoff and excess nutrients in that water really resulting in these blooms, as well as the litter on the shoreline. So again, a pretty long list of impacts here. In terms of the legal framework, in the United States, we have the Clean Water Act, which regulates pollutant discharge in waters of the United States. And under the Clean Water Act, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System really is the primary actor on urban runoff. And NPDES regulates point sources of pollution that discharge to waters of the United States, also called WOTUS. NPDES regulates three major sources of stormwater discharge, which include construction activities, industrial activities, and municipal separate storm sewer systems, also called MS4s, which is what I will refer to it as. And most states and some tribes are granted authority to administer Clean Water Act laws. This is known as sovereignty or as primacy. Different areas use different terms. And basically this requires the states to pass laws that are at least as stringent as the federal pollution laws, so in this case, the Clean Water Act. And I will see you over in part 2.